Hey everybody, welcome to BrickVault. This video is going to be taking a closer look at the large, very large Lego Spinner. That's the nickname for your standard police car of the gritty 1982 sci-fi noir Blade Runner. It cruised easily through the thick smog of a dark, cyberpunk-esque Los Angeles, and has the added plus of being able to vertically land and take off. Who would have thought that by the time we have flying cars, there'd hardly be a sky left to fly in? And now the body of the Spinner at its core is designed quite elegantly, I feel, but once it occupies its place in this glim universe, it gets covered in the markings and soon starts to look like it belongs in such a dark place. This wonderful custom Lego model was designed by David Duperron, and the building instructions can currently be found at our web store, www.brickvault.toys. Each model comes with a PDF step-by-step building guide and digital parts list. This build also has a sticker detailing too that comes in PDF format for later printing. With each purchase, it really helps us out here in the studio, makes it so we can keep on doing these videos for you guys in the future, and it's a great way to help the incredibly talented designers that we work with, like David here. So right now it's time to jump into the details of the model. I'm going to start off by showing you all the things that you can't initially see just by taking a look at the original beauty shots that I've been showing you guys from the beginning. First off, the doors can open up. The joint actually has two different posable ends, so you can lift it up and out of the body, so it has enough space to really rest on the top of the car. But really, I'm only showing you that so you can see the amazing inside and the incredibly detailed interior. Blade Runner is a highly praised film when it comes to its atmosphere as well as the amazing sets, and this includes the interior of the car. There is an excellent design for both of the seats. They feel really solid, nicely rounded over, and there's lots and lots of little printed tiles that show tons of little buttons. You'll be able to see a bit more of the technical gizmos from the other side because you have the initial control console there. And David did quite a good job to include specific pieces of the interior from the film. He included a special purge print, which is used, I think, when the ship is taking off or when the Spinner is taking off. And in general, there are just a lot of fun details to notice that really make you feel like this is a ship that actually can be flown around. Haven't tested it out yet, but I feel like this could fit a Technic figure, and either way, this is probably one of the better interiors that I've seen for an upscaled build in quite a long time. Now, for another aspect of the build that you can't initially see just by staring at it is that it's got an amazing underbelly. There are several shots, mostly quick shots, where you can see the underside of a Spinner. There's a pretty good one of it landing, so you can have an idea of all the different police lights on the underside, the underbelly of the ship, which makes sense when you think about it. People have to know that you're still a police officer when you're landing and flying above the general population. Now, most Lego enthusiasts have heard of the acronym SNOT, or the studs not on top technique, but this is one of the very rare builds that has no studs even on the bottom, no undersides of studs showing anywhere in the build that I can think of. I understand if that's not something you totally care about, or if it's a building technique that you just don't pursue, but either way, this is just a technical feat that very few builders are able to achieve, and it looks amazing. Now you can see it built up on this stand, also included if you were to get the instructions, and it actually studs into the bottom, which is great. Requires you to take a couple of tiles off, but once it's in there, I mean, it's really not going to be popping off, and that's something that I think anybody who's tried to display a large piece will be very happy about. It has the added plus of including details that sort of fit in with the Blade Runner universe, minus that bit of printing that you see at the very bottom. One of those slope pieces we just didn't have in the studio last minute, so we used a different one. It's all gray at the bottom. But anyways, let's move on away from the flying mode and into the driving mode. Normally the Spinner transforms within the universe, but in order to keep everything looking nice and proportional, David came up with the idea of just switching out the builds for the front tires. Pulling them apart is a little bit funny. Every now and then you do get a couple of little Technic pins stuck in those holes, but ultimately the switch out process is actually pretty easy. The finished product gives you these exposed tires in the front, where you can see the covering has now flipped up towards the top, and now you guessed it, but the Spinner can actually roll around. There is a slight amount of drag, so if you do want to roll it any which way, just remember to keep it on as smooth a surface as possible. Now here is the car all the way from the side. You can see the sticker detailing a little bit more. In the future, we'll probably use a different type of sticker paper so it can blend in a little bit more with the blue, but I think it looks pretty good with the nitty-gritty detailing. Now, getting into some of the other details of the build, we have the light structure on the top. It's not perfectly symmetrical for either side, which is actually accurate to at least some of the spinners that you saw in the film, and someday this might be really fun to try to light up with some LEDs. Moving towards the back, we've got a really fun build for not just the yellow bumper on the side, but those flag pieces are in between the lights in the back, which make up those tiny little rivets. It's a really fun building technique, probably one of my favorite bits of the build to put together. That, and also the inclusion of just that one little Technic wing piece that matches up with that 1x2 slope that's got that little cut in corner. It's a really fun little technique there. And I guess at this point, I'm just going through my favorite bits of building technique in the model. It's an awesome setup for the different ratcheted joints that make up the 4 different giant windscreens that match up there. It's supposed to be perfectly smooth, and when you look at it from the lower angle, it's very, very close. That's a super hard angle to get right. Now, there's plenty more little techniques that I could point out, but really kind of go on forever. So at this point, I'm going to be talking about the durability of the MOC. Now, of course, this is primarily a display model, but it's actually quite structurally solid. But like any highly detailed MOC, there are always going to be a few little delicate parts that I think you guys should be aware of. And it always is just kind of interesting for us to go through a highly detailed model like this and figure out what kind of hyper accurate little details you'd like to live with being a little bit delicate because it looks so good, and other ones that you might sacrifice because it needs to be structurally sound. So as you can see so far, the back of the model is very, very strong. You can also hold it up by the front, but don't try to support it just by the very end. Remember, those pieces are specifically made to be switched out. And then you might have been able to see earlier that the doors are relatively loose. They don't, or at least they're loose in the sense that they don't snap into place when they close. Also, that little window piece can have the tendency to pop off ever so slightly. It's only connected by studs in the back. And then if you open the door a little bit too fast, sometimes that little rear view mirror piece, side mirror piece, can pop out. When it comes to the lights, very, 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 very strong. That little top note is strong. Even the little side bits, they can be held on relatively well. And now let's check out the model from the underside. Let's turn it over. Remember to hold on to the doors when you turn it upside down. It can fall out, but nothing comes off. There's nothing that's loose that comes off. Even the little side bits there's that one little piece on the door that can pop off ever so slightly, but this model isn't one of those builds that will have a frustrating break, as in a piece that will fall off that takes more than a couple of seconds to just snap back on real quick. So at the end of the day, when it comes to handling this model, I feel very relaxed, and that's essentially how my mind categorizes large Lego builds at this point. Am I clearing an extra large pathway in front of me when I walk it from one place to the next? Am I making sure there aren't things on the ground that I could possibly stumble over? Do I hold my breath when I move it from A to B? The answer to any of these questions is no when it comes to the spinner. And at this point, I just like to say that for a build that is based on a movie that really is all about atmosphere and detail and setting a tone, I feel like it is especially important to get a Lego MOC that represents the spinner to look as good as possible. And when it comes to David Duperron's interpretation of this model, I have to say he has done this design true justice. There's even excerpts from the film hidden throughout the building instructions, which I find kind of fun. And this is only a creation that really could have come from a true diehard fan of Blade Runner, combined with someone who's got extra special talents when it comes to putting together Lego bricks. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Extra special thanks if you've stuck around to the end of the video. And like always, if you enjoy our content, you can always like or subscribe. And if you have any ideas about another Lego custom creation you'd like to see us do in the future, let us know in the comment section below. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time at BrickVault.